Something is happening inside the PGA Tour right now that nobody wants to talk about on camera. Behind closed doors, players are furious, sponsors are panicking, and one tournament just became the center of a storm that could change professional golf forever. If you love golf, if you follow the PGA Tour even a little bit, you need to hear the story from the very beginning, because what happened this week at the John Deere Classic is not just about one tournament missing a few big names. It is a warning sign of a much bigger crisis brewing inside the entire sport. Stick with me till the end of this video because I am going to break down exactly what is going on, why the sponsors are furious, why 14 of the biggest stars in golf decided to stay away, and what this means for the future of the PGA Tour as we know it. Before we go further, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this channel is where you get the real stories behind the sport, the things that never make it into the mainstream headlines. I put in hours of research every single day just so you don't have to, and honestly, your subscription means more to me than you know. It keeps this channel alive and keeps these stories coming to you first. So tap subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get into what is honestly one of the wildest weeks in recent PGA Tour history. Let's rewind to the start of this month. The John Deere Classic, one of the oldest and most respected tournaments on the PGA Tour calendar, going all the way back to 1971, was getting ready to tee off at TPC Deere Run in Silvis, Illinois. This tournament has history. It is the second longest running title sponsorship in PGA Tour history, only behind the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Jordan Spieth became the youngest winner in PGA Tour history right here back in 2013 at just 19 years old. Steve Stricker won this event 3 years in a row. This place has produced legends. But this year, something felt different from the moment the field list came out. Because when fans and analysts looked at who was actually going to show up, the list of absences was staggering. World number 1 Scottie Scheffler was not there. Rory McIlroy was not there. Victor Hovland, fresh off his first win of the season, was not there either. And it did not stop with just those three. As the week went on, more and more names quietly pulled out. Patrick Rogers withdrew due to a back injury right before his tee time. Jonathan Vegas pulled out to prepare for the Scottish Open instead. One by one, players who could have boosted this field chose other paths, other tournaments, other priorities. When you added it all up, sources close to the tour and multiple golf outlets counted more than a dozen top stars who simply were not walking the fairways at TPC Deere Run this year. For a tournament that pays out an $8.8 million purse, with the winner taking home over $1.8 million, that is not a small deal. That is a direct insult to what John Deere, the sponsor, has been pouring into this event for over 2 decades. And here is where it gets interesting because this is not just players being lazy or players not caring about the tournament. This is something much deeper. This is about a massive structural shift happening inside the PGA Tour right now, one that most casual fans have no idea about, but one that insiders are calling the biggest change to professional golf in decades. You see, ever since LIV Golf entered the picture and shook the foundations of professional golf, the PGA Tour has been scrambling to restructure itself. They created what is called the signature event model, a group of elevated tournaments with bigger purses, smaller fields, and no cuts, designed to keep the biggest stars playing against each other more often and to compete directly with LIV's model. But here's the problem. Once you create a tier of super tournaments, guess what happens to everything else? Every other tournament outside that elite bubble starts to feel like a second-class event. And the John Deere Classic, despite its incredible history, despite its passionate fan base in the Quad Cities, despite the massive money John Deere pours into it every single year, is not one of those signature events. So when the biggest stars in the world are looking at their calendar, deciding where to spend their limited number of tournament weeks, an event like the John Deere Classic gets pushed further and further down the priority list. Scheffler is coming off a heartbreaking playoff loss to Hovland at the Travelers Championship, and instead of playing John Deere, he's choosing to rest and recharge ahead of the Open Championship, which is just over 2 weeks away. Hovland, who just won his first title of the season, is doing the exact same thing, skipping an event he has barely played in his career to prepare for a major. McIlroy is doing what McIlroy always does before a major, protecting his energy for the tournaments that matter most for his legacy. And look, from the player's side, you can understand the logic. These guys are professional athletes managing their bodies and their schedules like elite performers in any sport. But from the sponsor side, from John Deere's side, from the Quad Cities community's side, this stings. Because year after year, they are told this tournament matters, this tournament has history, this tournament is part of the fabric of the PGA Tour, and yet year after year, the very biggest names in the sport treat it as optional, as skippable, as a tournament you play only if you desperately need FedEx Cup points or if you have some personal connection to it. Now here is where the real bombshell comes in, and this is the part that has insiders talking. Because behind the scenes, the PGA Tour has been working on an even bigger shakeup, one that is going to fundamentally change how tournaments like the John Deere Classic exist within the tour structure. Reports have confirmed that starting in 2028, the PGA Tour is planning to split into a 2-track system. Track 1 will be called the Championship Series, featuring roughly 130 players, 23 to 24 events a year, massive $20 million purses, guaranteed field sizes of at least 120 players, and includes the 4 majors and the Players' Championship. Track 2 will be called the Challenger Series, a lower tier with smaller purses around $4 million, and this is where events that do not make the cut into the elite tier will live. And here is the part that is making players furious behind closed doors. Under this new system, players competing in the Championship Series will no longer be allowed to drop down and play in Challenger Series events, even if they wanted to, even if they have a hometown connection, even if they have history with the tournament, even if their sister caddied for them there as a teenager, like Scheffler's connection to his home event. The PGA Tour is essentially telling its biggest stars, you play at the top level, full stop, no exceptions. Major champion Lucas Glover spoke about this exact issue this week, right here at the John Deere Classic, and what he said should worry every golf fan. He revealed that this rule was, in his words, a very, very, very hot topic among the Players' Advisory Council and the Policy Board. Glover admitted he personally would rather have the freedom to choose to play a tournament like this one, even for less money and fewer points, because he believes he has a better chance to win here than at a bigger stacked event. But then he was told the commercial reality. Sponsors are being asked to pay these enormous sums, $20 million for Track 1 events, and if stars are allowed to just wander down and play wherever they want, it destroys the entire commercial logic of the tiered system. Glover's exact words were, "It stinks, but it kind of made sense." Think about what that means for a tournament like John Deere. Once this new system locks in, if John Deere Classic does not get classified into that elite championship series tier, the very best players in the world will be legally barred from playing here, even if they wanted to. This is not a maybe. This is coming. And that is exactly why sponsors, tournament organizers, and everyday fans are furious right now because they can see the writing on the wall. A tournament with over 50 years of history, a tournament that gave Jordan Spieth his first PGA Tour win as a teenager, a tournament that has weathered every storm in golf for decades, could soon become permanently locked out from ever hosting the very best players on earth. And it is not just the John Deere Classic that is worried. Nick Taylor has openly expressed concern that the RBC Canadian Open, another historic event, might not make the cut into that top tier either. Scottie Scheffler himself is expected to be unhappy about potentially being barred from playing his emotional home event, the CJ Cup Byron Nelson, a tournament where he made his PGA Tour debut as a teenager. So this crisis is not isolated to one tournament in Illinois. This is a symptom of a much bigger transformation happening across the entire PGA Tour, one that is about to draw a hard, permanent line between the haves and the have-nots in professional golf. Now, let's talk about what actually happened on the course, because despite all this drama, despite all these big names missing, the John Deere Classic still delivered one heck of a tournament, and honestly, this is part of the irony in this whole story. Because even without Scheffler, without McIlroy, without Hovland, the golf itself was incredible. Lucas Glover, the very man speaking out about these commercial pressures, actually led for much of the tournament, sharing the 54-hole lead with Lee Hodges. Chris Gooderup, a player who received a sponsor exemption into this very tournament back in 2022 after finishing his college career at Oklahoma, came back and delivered an unbelievable final round, closing with a stunning 62 to win the whole thing at 20 under par. Gooderup has remained loyal to this tournament ever since they gave him that first chance, and he said it himself, this tournament has been so good to him. His win here marked his third title of the season, the most individual wins of any player on tour this year. There is something almost poetic about that, isn't there? The tournament that the biggest stars are abandoning is the very tournament that keeps producing storylines, breakout winners, and emotional moments. Jackson Koivin, the #1 ranked amateur in the world, made his professional debut here after a standout finish at the US Open just weeks earlier, and even though he missed the cut in a heartbreaking way, the buzz around his debut proved that this tournament still has star power of its own, just a different kind of star power, the kind built on the future rather than resting on past legends. Jordan Spieth, the two-time champion of this very event, fought back from a rough start in round 2 and survived right on the cut line, needing 3 back 9 birdies just to make the weekend. Ricky Fowler made his return to this tournament for the first time in 15 years. Zach Johnson, the 50-year-old former champion, skipped the U.S. Senior Open just to play what he called a hometown event here. These are the kinds of stories that build the emotional soul of a tournament. But here is the brutal truth. Emotional stories do not pay the bills the way star power does. Sponsors do not sign eight-figure deals because of feel-good moments alone. They sign those deals expecting the biggest names in the world to show up, to bring the eyeballs, to bring the television ratings, to bring the crowds. And when that does not happen, year after year, patience starts to wear thin. This is the exact tension tearing at the heart of professional golf right now. On one side, you have historic tournaments with soul, with stories, with deep community roots, tournaments that have supported the PGA Tour for decades through sponsorship money that keeps the whole ecosystem running. On the other side, you have a modern sport increasingly built around star power, television deals, and a small handful of elite players who could soon be legally locked into playing only the biggest events, leaving everything else to fight over the scraps. And let's be honest about something else here, something most golf commentators are too polite to say out loud. This is exactly the kind of crisis LIV Golf's arrival forced onto the PGA Tour. Before LIV shook things up, the PGA Tour never needed a two-tiered system. It never needed signature events with no cuts and inflated purses just to keep its stars interested. The competitive threat from LIV forced the PGA Tour's hand, and now, years later, we are watching the ripple effects hit tournaments like the John Deere Classic, tournaments that never asked to be caught in the middle of a corporate turf war between two golf organizations. So what happens next? According to reports, the Challenger Series will include 7 elevated events of its own, designed to give lower-tier tournaments some level of relevance and star power, even if the very top names are locked out. There is also going to be a promotion and relegation system, similar to what you see in European soccer leagues, where players who struggle at the top level could get relegated down to the Challenger Series, and top performers in the Challenger Series could get promoted up. It is a fascinating structural idea on paper. But for tournaments like the John Deere Classic, it raises a painful question. If a player wins this tournament and gets promoted into the championship series because of that win, does that mean they can never come back to defend their own title here? Jordan Spieth himself pointed out how strange that situation would be. Imagine winning a tournament, only to be told you are now too good to ever play here again. Thank you so much for watching all the way to this point. That genuinely means the world to me, and I will see you in the next one.